I was in the British Museum one day and found a very old poem called Butterfly Ball, which I like very much. And it was about the creatures of the woods, how they all put down their anger for the day and have a good time. So I took the book, and in my house in Norfolk, I spent probably a year doing all the pictures. And the rest is history. I mean, at one point, I think it was considered the best-selling children's book in the world. And that's it. Butterfly Ball.
And the chords go... Try that again. I think it's a better tune.
I remember, I think it was the summer of 72, and the Sunday Times had a colour supplement. And in the colour supplement, they were showing illustrations from a new book. And I remember looking at it and going, wow, they're great. And that's the last thought I had until about a year later. After I'd left Deep Purple, I went in the office one day, in our management office, and there was the book lying on the table. And I looked through it, I said, oh, yes, I remember that. So, well, how would you like to put it to music? I said, well, there's a thought. Why me? Actually, why me was my first thought.
Like chords again go... There's the chords to the verse.
Well, the success of the book really engineered in my mind the possibility of maybe doing it on stage, maybe doing it as a movie. And I was trying to think who would create a wonderful musical. And I knew the Pink Floyd, and I mentioned it to them, and then somehow Roger got mentioned, and I met with Deep Purple's management.
And I still, to this day, don't know why they picked me, because my track record at that time was being a bass player in a band, and a hard rock band at that, you know, with a reputation for a lot of noise. So why they'd want to pick me to do this, I've no idea. I think it was blind faith. I'm a man of different parts. I do a lot of different things. There's Roger Glover, the heavy metal bass player. There's Roger Glover, the writer. There's Roger Glover, the producer. There's probably a lot of other things I do as well. As far as Butterfly Ball is concerned, Love Is All, it was Roger Glover, the writer and producer.
This is the original chord chart that I had at the time. I'd written it out in pencil. Always wrote out in pencil because you get the whole thing written out and somebody would say, hey, we're changing it. So I always wrote everything out in pencil.
And I had that bit because it was going to be for something else. And then we got to the chorus bit. From there, it leads into the chorus, which is the A minor.
He started playing those dum 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 dum, and I went, yeah, that's great. So that would have been him, and I would have said, I've got a melody that would go over that, and so it's pretty much 50-50, I'd say, the songwriting on that.
I can hear the kind of musicality coming from Eddie. There's some really nice chord changes in it. And I can perhaps hear Roger's idea of what something commercial should be as the producer, saying, hey, maybe we should put that there, maybe we should do this first.
He'd sit in the studio all night long doing one mix, and the engineer would be half asleep, and he'd force himself to keep going and do another one, and the slightest bit, If there was a guitar sort of an eighth of a centimetre too loud, he'd scrap the whole thing and do it again. And that used to drive me mad. Most of my songs are very melodic. Roger's very riffy. Smoke on the Water. I mean, it's all very heavy, riffy stuff. I'm the sort of Paul McCartney-ish, childish tunes, simple tunes, which I like. I like melodies. And I think that's why me and Roger work well together. I had that input and he had the aggressive bit, and the whole thing together blended.
There were 3 chords over the intro, which went... and there's the stop. So I thought it'd be nice to just have a little line, because they go up in fourths. You got B, E, A, and then D. So I came down with the little line that drops down, goes... and that's it. That's the intro.
Because we didn't actually have an intro, but he just based the rundown just around the chorus, and he just played it on guitar, dun, 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 and we recorded it. And when we played it back, I thought, shit, it's the Sunny Afternoon, the Kinks, but it wasn't a conscious theft.
And at the end of the verse, I played a little line which was nicked from a Motown song that goes... and then you get into the chorus, which was... and I played little lines and little pentatonic lines. There are a lot of those little ad-lib lines that go on during the song.
And then Roger came up with the idea for the middle, which was, what do you call that kind of a middle? It's To me, Ronnie made the song special. He lifts it, he takes it to somewhere else. I mean, I'd tried singing it, and it was okay, you know. Roger tried singing it, and it was okay. And then Ronnie sang it, and you think, Jesus, that's a whole different thing. He just changed it. Transformed the song.
The last time I sang the song was the last take that we did in 1973. I've not ever done it since then. I remember the first line, I think, everybody's got to live together. I don't remember what comes after that. I think one of the things, of course, is that it was very Beatle-like. I think that was one of its great connections. And I think that because it was a very up song, a very cheery song, a very happy song, perhaps.
And since the Beatles were mentioned, and it, not by name, but certainly All You Need Is Love was mentioned, that I felt that a Beatles-y sort of approach was would be appropriate.
When I first heard it, I thought, Beatles, and I thought that's how it would end up. And of course, when they did that little piece in the middle with it between the verse 1 and verse 2, of course, that is also a little pastiche on All You Need Is Love as well.
I decided, reading the poetry in the book, that it should be a sort of All You Need Is Love type song, and a parody of All You Need Is Love, if you like. All You Need Is Love Part 2, you know.
Well, the Beatles thing was All You Need Is Love. And we wanted to steer away from that. Roger sometimes says that we consciously nicked it, but I don't feel that we did. Well, it came out in England and nothing very much happened. It was played an awful lot on the radio, very heavily played and promoted, but it didn't catch on for some reason. And then the publisher, John Craig, who was handling the whole project, Butterfly Ball, he rang me up and said, that song, Love Is All, he said, it's gone to number 3 in Holland. And this was early one morning, and then an hour or so later, he said, it's gone to number 2 now. And then by lunchtime, it had gone to number 1. And there it stayed for, I think, 13 weeks or something. which was quite incredible.
It was really successful in various other parts of Europe as well. People covered it. I remember going to see Sacha Distel when he played at the Palladium. And he had the cartoon behind him, and he had an album called Love Is All, and, you know, it's the great Roger Glover, Eddie Hardin song. Wow, you know, it's like a real mark, it's an achievement.
Sacha Distel heard the song, and he wanted to use our backing track, because French musicians, he said, he would never get that sound that we'd got. So he said, could he use our backing track? And one of the guys at Deep Purple's office said, send him the record and he can just sing along with it. That was the mentality of the music business in those days. I mean, they expected the guy just to sing along with Ronnie. It doesn't quite work like that. He had a hit in France before we did. He had the first hit in France. He was #1, and then a month later, we had the #1 as well. So it was #1 twice in the same few months or whatever. I always felt it was a joint effort. The whole Butterfly Ball thing, I always felt was a me and Roger joint thing. So I was supposed, to be honest, I was a bit disappointed when it came out and it said Roger Glover, and I suddenly became just a guest. And I think some other people were quite upset as well, but yeah, it's one of those things.
We were eating one day and someone came in and said, I have something for you, Ronnie. I said, oh, what's that? Here it is, first gold record. My first gold record, on the record, it said Roger Glover. I mean, it said presented to me, but it had Roger's name on the record and everything. And I was just kind of secondary, and that annoyed me. I must tell you, that annoyed me. I said, you'll have to change this then. If I'm going to get a gold record, I'm going to be recognized for what I did, because everyone thought Roger sang that song. Early on, they all thought that Roger sang it, because the album says Roger Glover and guests. And so that annoyed me, because I know what hard work I put into it, and I wanted to get my credit for what I did. So they took the record away, they changed it, and so it had my name on it, finally.
I'm not a singer, but it was my project. And having a big hit under my name, and Ronnie being the singer, you know, if that's a confusion, then I can apologize for that. The film of it, I don't like at all. I've never liked that. I had nothing to do with it. But to me, it was shoddily done, it was tastelessly done, it was cheaply done. And probably the most embarrassing moment of my life was being invited to the premiere of the only film that I've actually starred in, and hating it. I sat there in the special seat, surrounded by all the people that worked on the concert and on the album. And the lights went down and this thing came on, and I just hated it. And I just wanted to run away. And I thought about leaving the theatre halfway through, but I thought, no, I'm too nice a guy for that. I'll stick it out and I'll say thank you when people say it was interesting. Oh, that was really interesting. You know. So I've got a bad memory of that. I'd left Purple a matter of months before, and that was not a happy occasion. That was, it was a difficult time to live through. I mean, I was in arguably the biggest band in the world in '73, and was sort of forced out of it. So I was going through a depression and unhappy period.
We got very close, me and Roger, and we started to go through funny phases and buying silly big houses. And I just wanted to get away from everything, really, and it was a big drinking period for me. It was heavy boozing, and then I just kept on producing albums. Then I started to have some success in Japan, and then they started using that stuff for commercials for whiskey, believe it or not. So then one of my songs became a big hit in Japan for whiskey. So that's what I've been doing through those years, and I've done solo albums. I'm doing another solo album at the moment.
because it was such a success, much to my surprise, kind of stuck with me. You know, I became a children's illustrator. I'd gone from being what people thought was a very druggy rock and roll illustrator to being a very cozy children's illustrator.
And Love Is All it went on to have a life of its own. You know, it wasn't the parts that made it up. It wasn't the musicians. It wasn't the arrangement. It's now a whole thing called Love Is All that's out in the world.
Roger Glover phoned me up fortuitously and said, "Help. I've got a show in, I think, 2 days, 3 days' time at the Royal Albert Hall, and one of the singers has dropped out."
There was no announcements. There was no, "and now Ian Gillan." There was nothing like that. He walked out on the stage and just the place rose and just gave him a standing ovation. It was amazing. Very touching moment.
I went home next morning, picked up my guitar, wrote 3 songs, and started making some phone calls. And that's basically how I got back into it, because I realized, I think, that I'd made a wrong decision. I thank Roger, as always, for his important parts that he's played in my life. It was great. It was a miracle, really. And I walked out on stage wearing, I had a really short haircut. And I wasn't in the program, and so nobody knew I was going to be there. And Vincent Price was sitting in the organ loft in a peacock chair, narrating the parts between the pieces of music on the Butterfly Ball. And the audience started to react, and it was an amazing thing. It turned into a huge, overwhelming welcome to the stage that lasted for a very long time. It was quite moving, and I was talking to Vincent Price in the bar afterwards, and he said he'd never seen anything like it. He had to stop and just watch the Royal Albert Hall just doing its thing, and I was very moved by it.